In a striking development amid the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has reported that at least 155 Chinese nationals are actively fighting alongside Russian forces. This revelation raises significant questions about China's role in the war and the nature of its involvement as the situation continues to unfold in the beleaguered region. Zelenskyy announced the capture of 2 Chinese citizens by Ukrainian troops in Donetsk Oblast, affirming that their involvement is part of a broader trend where Russians are allegedly recruiting Chinese nationals for military service. The Chinese issue is serious. There are 155 people with surnames and passport data, 155 Chinese citizens fighting against Ukrainians on Ukrainian soil, Zelenskyy stated during a press conference. He emphasized that the actual number might be higher as Ukrainian intelligence continues to gather information on this emerging phenomenon. The recruitment process, according to Zelenskyy, involves the use of social media platforms, particularly TikTok and other Chinese networks where Russian entities are purportedly advertising military positions. These recruits reportedly arrive in Moscow, undergo medical checks, and receive training before being deployed to the front lines. They receive migration cards as well as Russian payment system cards on which they receive money, he added, indicating an organized effort to integrate these foreign fighters into the Russian military structure. The implications of this development are significant. As the war has progressed, it has become increasingly apparent that Russia is seeking to bolster its ranks through unconventional means, including the recruitment of foreign nationals. While the Ukrainian government is making efforts to contact Beijing regarding the situation, the Chinese Foreign Ministry has stated that it advises its citizens to avoid involvement in armed conflicts, labeling Kyiv's claims as baseless. This stance reflects China's desire to maintain a neutral position, despite growing evidence of Chinese nationals participating in the conflict. The United States has echoed Ukraine's concerns, with State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce describing the participation of Chinese citizens as disturbing. She highlighted China's substantial role in supporting Russian military efforts, emphasizing that China provides a significant portion of the dual-use items that Russia requires to sustain its operations. In light of these developments, analysts are raising alarms about the potential for increased international tensions. The Institute for the Study of War (ISW) has noted that Russia is actively recruiting vulnerable migrant workers from various countries to supplement its military forces, raising ethical questions about the treatment and coercion of these individuals. As the conflict continues, the situation remains fluid. The reports of foreign nationals fighting in Ukraine could have far-reaching consequences, complicating diplomatic relations not only between Ukraine and Russia but also between China and the West. Zelensky's administration is keenly aware of the political ramifications and is taking steps to address the issue on the international stage. Looking ahead, the dynamics of the conflict are likely to evolve further. With Russia's ongoing military offensives and Ukraine's determined resistance, the international community will be watching closely to see how these developments influence the broader geopolitical landscape. As the war grinds on the roles of foreign fighters, the implications of international diplomacy and the potential for escalated confrontation will remain at the forefront of discussions surrounding the conflict in Ukraine. In a notable escalation of military tactics, Ukraine's forces recently reported a significant success in their ongoing conflict with Russia. Commander-in-Chief Alexander Syrsky announced that Ukrainian troops successfully shot down a Russian Tu-22M3 long-range bomber, valued at approximately $100 million, utilizing a drone shortly after it landed at an airfield. This incident underscores the evolving nature of warfare, where drone technology plays an increasingly pivotal role in combat operations. Syrsky elaborated on the operation in an interview with the Ukrainian news agency LB.ua, stating a few days ago our successful actions destroyed a Tu-22M3 long-range bomber. It had just landed when our drone hit it. The Tu-22M3, a supersonic strategic bomber developed by the United Aircraft Company Tupolev, has been a critical asset for Russia, launching missile strikes against various Ukrainian targets throughout the conflict. This incident is part of a broader trend in which Ukrainian forces have employed drone technology not only for reconnaissance but also for offensive operations. In a related effort on April 5, Ukrainian military intelligence reported a coordinated drone attack targeting 3 military airfields in Russia, which allegedly resulted in significant damage to 3 Tu-95 MS strategic bombers at the Engels 2 airbase. The use of deception has also become a strategic element in this conflict as Ukrainian soldiers utilize fake bunkers to mislead Russian forces into targeting the wrong locations. Dmytro Zlektenko, a drone operator with Ukraine's unmanned systems forces, explained the process. Soldiers build fake positions in the tree line, designing them so that it all looks real. This ruse not only protects Ukrainian positions but also provides early warning signals for troops when Russian forces respond to these decoys. The tactical ingenuity displayed by Ukrainian forces comes amid ongoing heavy fighting in various regions, particularly in the Donetsk Oblast, where Russian forces are reportedly attempting to advance towards strategic locations such as Pokrovsk and Kostiantynivka, despite the introduction of additional Russian troops and resources. Advancements have been minimal due to effective Ukrainian counterattacks and drone operations that complicate Russian supply lines and operational movements. On the diplomatic front, a second round of bilateral discussions between U.S. and Russian authorities is scheduled for April 10 in Istanbul, focusing solely on normalizing diplomatic operations, further highlighting the tensions surrounding ceasefire negotiations. The Kremlin's steadfast refusal to engage meaningfully in peace discussions signals a continued commitment to military objectives, with President Vladimir Putin's strategies indicating a long-term vision for the conflict. As the conflict evolves, the reliance on drone technology and innovative tactical approaches will likely shape future engagements. Ukrainian forces are not only adapting to the battlefield realities but are also leveraging advancements in drone warfare to counteract Russian military capabilities. With significant international support and ongoing developments in military technology, the situation remains fluid, suggesting that both sides will continue to adapt their strategies in pursuit of their respective objectives. As we look ahead, the implications of these military innovations and the continuing struggle for territorial control will undoubtedly influence the broader geopolitical landscape in Eastern Europe and beyond. As the Arctic region gains prominence in global geopolitics, Russia's ambitions under President Vladimir Putin are becoming increasingly apparent. With the backdrop of climate change, melting polar ice caps, the Arctic is emerging not only as a treasure trove of natural resources but also as a critical maritime route that could reshape global trade dynamics. The implications of these developments are profound as nations scramble to secure their interests in this strategically important area. In a recent analysis by the Atlantic Council, it is noted that the geopolitical landscape of the Arctic is evolving rapidly. The ongoing conflict in Ukraine has changed international relations, with the US and Russia discussing potential cooperation in the Arctic despite their broader tensions. This dialogue comes in the wake of former President Donald Trump's interest in acquiring Greenland from Denmark, which further underscores the region's escalating significance in global affairs. Putin has long viewed maritime strategy as vital to expanding Russia's influence. The establishment of a maritime collegium in August 2024, led by Nikolai Patrushev, a close ally and former head of the FSB, emphasizes the Kremlin's focus on securing national interests in the Arctic. This move comes amid accusations of hostile naval activities by Russia, including the sabotage of undersea cables and surveillance missions near NATO territories. As these tensions rise, the Arctic becomes a focal point for Russia's military strategy, with a particular emphasis on controlling the Northern Sea route, a critical shipping lane that connects Europe and the Pacific. The Northern Sea route has significant implications for global trade, especially as climate change renders previously inaccessible areas navigable. Russia's assertive claims over this route, which many critics argue contravene the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, highlight the potential for conflict. The Kremlin's attempts to restrict access to the Northern Sea route may provoke challenges from other nations, particularly those with vested interests in the Arctic such as Canada, Denmark, and Norway. China's growing involvement in the Arctic, facilitated by its partnership with Russia, further complicates the situation. Both nations view the Arctic as a critical area for cooperation, particularly regarding trade routes and access to natural resources. As the ports along the Northern Sea Route become increasingly strategic for both Chinese and Russian naval power, regional security concerns are heightened. Smaller nations may find themselves at a disadvantage against the combined might of these two powers, raising the specter of increased militarization in the region. The potential benefits of Arctic resource control for Russia are substantial, with vast reserves of oil and gas poised to significantly enhance state revenues. However, historical precedent suggests that such a financial windfall would likely be funneled into military expansion rather than public welfare, potentially leading to greater aggression and instability. The international community must consider the implications of allowing Russia to gain dominance in the Arctic, as it could lead to unpredictable geopolitical consequences. As the dynamics of Arctic geopolitics continue to unfold, NATO member states are urged to bolster their presence and capabilities in the region. There is a growing consensus that international bodies such as the International Court of Justice should intervene to clarify Russia's claims in the Arctic. Moreover, a new international convention based on existing maritime law frameworks is essential to mitigate tensions and prevent armed conflict. Looking ahead, the need for a coherent strategy regarding Russia's ambitions in the Arctic is clearer than ever. European nations must prioritize their security and consider enhanced partnerships with the United States and other NATO allies. The stakes are high, and the future stability of the Arctic depends on how the international community responds to Russia's assertive policies. As global interest in the Arctic continues to rise, the coming years will likely witness intensified competition and perhaps conflict as nations vie for dominance in this vital region. In a startling development amid the ongoing war in Ukraine, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy announced that Ukrainian forces captured 2 Chinese nationals allegedly fighting alongside Russian troops in the Donetsk region. This revelation, made on April 8, 2025, marks a significant shift in Ukraine's diplomatic narrative regarding China's involvement in the conflict. Zelenskyy confirmed that the captured individuals were identified as members of the Russian military, stating, "Our military captured 2 Chinese citizens who fought in the Russian army. This happened on the territory of Ukraine, in the Donetsk region." He further indicated that there is evidence suggesting many more Chinese citizens are actively engaged in combat alongside Russian forces. The Ukrainian leader has since directed his foreign minister to seek clarification from Beijing, emphasizing the gravity of the situation. "I have instructed the foreign minister of Ukraine to immediately contact Beijing and find out how China is going to respond to this," Zelenskyy stated. Historically, China has positioned itself as a neutral player in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, refraining from providing direct military assistance to either side. However, the capture of Chinese nationals raises questions about the authenticity of this neutrality. The Ukrainian Foreign Minister Andriy Sybiha underscored this point, asserting that the involvement of Chinese fighters undermines Beijing's credibility as a responsible member of the United Nations Security Council. U.S. State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce described the reports as disturbing, indicating that Washington is closely monitoring the situation. While Beijing maintains that it does not have troops engaged in the conflict, the Chinese Foreign Ministry is currently verifying the details regarding the 2 captured individuals. The ministry reiterated its stance, advising Chinese citizens against participating in military operations abroad. Military analysts have noted that the presence of foreign fighters is not unusual in the ongoing conflict, with individuals from various nations enlisting on both sides. However, the implications of state-sanctioned support from China or any formal military involvement could significantly alter the dynamics of the war. Anders Puck Nielsen, a military analyst at the Royal Danish Defence College, remarked, "As long as it's small numbers, then it's probably more individuals joining the Russian army for whatever reason, just as you can find Danes or Germans or Brits or Americans fighting on the Ukrainian side." Zelensky's comments serve not only as a diplomatic maneuver but also as a strategic assertion aimed at galvanizing support from Western allies. By linking China's involvement to Russia's military operations, he seeks to enhance the narrative that Moscow is receiving substantial backing from other nations, similar to the support provided by North Korea and Iran. This tactic may also be a calculated effort to pressure the United States into reassessing its military aid and diplomatic strategies concerning Ukraine. The geopolitical implications of this incident cannot be overstated. As the war enters a critical phase with both sides preparing for further offensives, the potential for increased foreign involvement could escalate tensions. Zelensky's efforts to confront China come at a time when the relationship between Ukraine and the U.S. remains uncertain, particularly with ongoing discussions about a potential peace deal and the shifting priorities of the Biden administration toward countering China. As the situation unfolds, the global community will be watching closely. The delicate balance of power in the region, already fraught with complexities, could be further tested if China decides to openly support Russia's military objectives in Ukraine. The coming weeks may reveal whether these captured individuals represent a broader trend or remain isolated cases, and how this might influence the already tumultuous geopolitical landscape.